If you own America's rifle, eventually you'll run into its big limitation. 223 Remington, or 5.56 by 45, is actually an excellent little cartridge. You can use it for a lot. Home defense, varminting, small game, even up into medium game if you're placing your shots well. But this does really run into its limitations pretty quickly. If you spend some time out on the range trying to hit targets at distances longer than 300 yards, for example, things just start to get a little bit more difficult, especially as the wind picks up. And then when it comes time to take out some of the heavier game, you're really on the edge. There are people that will hunt with 223, but we probably already have comments down below in this video, people saying that no, you should never do that. It's not enough bullet. You need to go up to 308 or something like that. Well, there have been lots of attempts to fix this cartridge. Originally, we had those little 55 grain bullets, which, yeah, they are pretty limiting. But, you know, you can do stuff like this. You could have a 75 grain boat tail hollow point. I've done ballistics gel tests with this, which you really should check out. Excellent. And this is a 75 grain spear gold dot bonded bullet on this side, and both of these will absolutely wreck gel. So if you wanted to get into some of those heavier hits, you can certainly do it with that. But you're kind of stuck. That's about the ceiling. You can get into the 77 grain Sierra Match King bullets, but that's about it. If you want to step up into bigger, heavier, and be able to get these things moving faster to do more damage, you kind of need something else. So that's why a lot of us have switched over to cartridges like the 6.5 Grendel. So you have bigger, heavier bullets, you have more propellant because you have a larger case, and it still fits in this platform. That's the big deal. We want to be able to continue to use this excellent rifle with minor modifications. So if you can get away with just a barrel change and maybe a magazine, or maybe you change out the bolt face as well, those three things really aren't bad at all. And so what we get with 6.5 Grendel is just that. All you have to do is you swap the barrel, you swap the bolt face, and you get a new magazine, and then suddenly you have a much heavier hit, and you can stay supersonic out past 1,000 yards, actually with a rifle that isn't very big. You can still have one of these little carbines, and it'll be wonderfully effective even out at long distances. So me, the one that I chose is kind of a step backward from 6.5 Grendel, so it's a little bit of a smaller bullet. This is a rifle in 6mm arc. And for a lot of us, this has been the poison pill that we've wanted. You know, we got more powder capacity, higher velocities, heavier bullets, and this little baby can be supersonic out to about 1,300 yards if you have a longer barrel. With a little shorty like this, I'm probably, I don't know, going transonic, probably about 1,000 yards out. But still, this is wonderful. It defeats the wind much better. It's much easier to get on target, as we're going to see here on these charts. And when that bullet arrives, it's going to have a much heavier hit. I have no qualms whatsoever about using 6mm arc on medium game like deer. In fact, there are people out there that have taken elk with this. You can go check that out online. It's a really effective cartridge if you have the right bullet. As much as I love my choice of cartridge, I love 6mm arc. I may have made a mistake, and we're going to figure this out by the end of the video if I did or not. 6mm arc, yeah, wonderfully efficient, great trajectory, much easier to get on target and all that. But there's something new that I actually think that you will want a lot more, and it is this. This is 22 arc. So it takes the same case. All you do is just neck it down to a 22 diameter caliber, so you get these same bullets you can actually run in 22 arc, same stuff that you get with 223 Remington. But this allows you to use, well, first off, it does have that larger capacity for more powder, and you can get things moving faster. But it also has a shoulder that's pushed back so that you can have those very low drag, very long bullets like the ELDMs, the Sierra Match Kings. You can get into some very heavy, much bigger bullets that are crazy efficient through the air. And they're going to work in this with, again, just those minor modifications. You don't have to do anything crazy to it. Now, I'm recommending this cartridge for you, and I'm going to go a little bit wider than that. I think that everybody needs to look at this cartridge. I think that this has the potential to be a bigger deal than 6.5 Creedmoor. I think that this is one that if people really understand what's going on in this cartridge, I think we're gonna see this all over the place, and I really hope that we do. So the first thing that I wanna talk about is its performance, and we're gonna compare this against some of the other cartridges that are out on the market right now. So what I've put in this first graph, this is a comparison at 1,500 yards. That's a really, really long way out there. But I wanted to give kind of an extreme example of how different AR cartridges compare. And what we're starting out with is actually a comparison against 6.5 Creedmoor itself with a 140 grain ELDM bullet. This is one that is well known for its long range capability, and so we're comparing little AR-15 cartridges against something that's really designed for the AR-10 or bigger rifles. As we compare these cartridges, I wanted to get the data that's just off the shelf. First off, it's off the shelf ammo. Most of this comes straight from Hornady, and I just kind of wanted to compare apples to apples as much as possible. These are all using efficient bullets for the cartridge so that we can see how this works. They're going to tend to be on the heavier side. So first off, way down at the bottom of the pack, we have 6.8 SPC2. And that is just far and away down below the extreme at the top, which is 6.5 Creedmoor. The next low performer is going to be 223 Remington with the new 73 grain Hornady ELDM bullet. It's really not bad for 223. That little bullet's kind of cool. But then we step up to 6.5 Grendel, also with a 123 grain bullet. It's way, way, way better than 6.8 SPC or 223, but we're going to get into some better stuff. Next we have the 22 Nosler with its new 85 grain RDF. 22 Nosler is, you can think of it like a super 223, where you take the same case dimensions as far as length goes and the rim diameter, so you don't even have to change out the bolt head, and you just blow the case up so that it's kind of a big fatty and it has a lot more power behind it. But because its shoulder is so far forward, you can't really get into some of the crazy, very low drag bullets, just like the problem that we run into typically with 223. So that's one of the reasons why this one comes in a little bit lower. This is another one that I'm gonna say I'm not a huge fan of. It tends to be very rough on brass, especially in the AR-15 platform. Other than that, you know, it is pretty cool, but not quite cool enough. We're gonna take a look at some others. 6mm ARC takes a very efficient bullet, that 108 grain ELDM, and you can actually get up to 115s. Even though 6mm ARC starts out a little bit slower, it is more efficient through the air, and so as distances increase, that 108 grain ELDM is going to do really well. Next on the chart is 224 Valkyrie. This was the first AR-15 cartridge to really start to make use of those very low drag bullets, and this is a 90 grain Sierra Match King for 223. And that's just wild. That is a crazy efficient bullet. It doesn't leave the muzzle extremely fast, but because of how good that bullet is, it really starts to outpace some of these others. However, it does not compare quite yet with 22 ARC. Even with a slightly less efficient 88 grain ELDM, 22 ARC at some of these longer distances has less drop. You're going to have to adjust less. It's more likely that you're going to get onto target. And this applies not only to drop, but to windage as well, as we're going to see here. So you can see at the top of the chart, 6.5 Creedmoor, but we're really not too far off with some of these little intermediate cartridges that we have right here. All right, next, let's take a look at my Chart-O data to see, because this isn't everything. Drop is not everything. We want to see windage and we want to see recoil and all that stuff. So everything that you see in orange is something that is positive, and if it starts to get into the negative, it starts to go blue, it starts to go cold. So first off, again, we're comparing everything against 6.5 Creedmoor, which doesn't really compare at all. It's a much larger cartridge, more going on, much heavier bullets, but this really is the one to beat. You can see just a whole huge swath of very dark orange on this for very good reason. First off, you're going to see that its energy at the muzzle is pretty far and away higher than the others. 2283 foot-pounds on that. And what I've tried to do to put this into more realistic terms is if I wanted to take a deer, I think that probably about 700 foot-pounds of energy would be just fine. That's a little bit more than a .357 Magnum. .357 Magnum, especially with a heavier bullet, is fine for taking medium game. And so I wanted to see at what distance these various cartridges would fall off of that level. Like, how far away could you be and still get that much energy on target? So with the 6.5 Creedmoor, we can actually be at 1,000 yards and still be able to put that much energy on target. And the other ones you can see start to fall off quite a bit. As we go across, drop, windage, it's an efficient bullet, it's heavier, it's gonna do better. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna throw this chart out, because what I want to do is compare everything just against these other intermediate cartridges, against 223 included, but we'll get rid of the big guy and we'll see how these little ones start to stack against each other. The first thing that you'll notice is that suddenly 22 ARC has really lit up. This one has a lot of orange going on, and some of the others pick up in other areas as well. So first off, we'll do the worst one. I'm actually going to do 6.8 SPC for the worst one on this. It is not moving out very quickly. It does have more energy on target, considerably more energy than 223. So if you're at closer ranges, yeah, 6.8 SPC is going to be a better choice. But you can see that on that energy, our top is 6.5 Grendel. So we have more case capacity, more powder, and it's the exact same weight of bullet, but it is moving out faster. And so this one is our winner overall of these cartridges for being able to put energy on target at the muzzle. We'll see how things go over distance because the efficiency of the bullet is a really big deal. Let's take a look at the whole recoil list here though. Blue is going to be our highest recoil, so that is going to be 6.5 Grendel. That's the one that's going to hit the hardest. The best, of course, is going to be a little 223 Remington. But you can see that there's a pretty big jump here where we have 22 ARC, all the various 22 bullets. Since they have less mass, you get considerably less recoil than you get with the other ones. How far these bullets can go before they drop below that 700 foot-pound threshold? We're looking at 6mm arc as being the winner on this at 650 yards, and then 6.5 Grendel stepping back a little bit, and then 22 arc falling back a little bit more. This next column is the supersonic distance, and 224 Valkyrie is going to be the winner on this with that really efficient 90 grain SMK. Now if you take that bullet and put it into 22 arc, it's actually going to do even better. So that's what I would recommend. If you're a hand loader, see if you can get a hold of some of those bullets. I think you're going to love it. So now let's take a look at our three distances that I have figured out. First off, 300 yards. You can see that 22 arc is whooping everybody when it comes to elevation and windage. And at first, this isn't a huge deal out at 300 yards. It's going to start to expand as we go along. We only have to hold off, and this is all in milliradians, by the way, all of my measurements here. So we have about only 1 mil that we have to hold over at 300 yards, assuming a 100-yard zero. Windage is only 0.5, and you can see that windage on that 223 is starting to creep up quite a bit. It's another 50% of that. Energy still belongs to 6mm arc and 6.5 Grendel. At 600 yards, we're starting to see things separating a little bit more. 22 arc has a really good elevation, so this is going to be one that's easy to get on target, not much windage, and its energy it's hanging in there. You get more with the other ones, but as far as getting on target, this one is easier. At 1,000 yards, elevation still wins. Energy is about 20 foot-pounds behind the 6.5 Grendel and the 6mm arc, which are identical at that point. We're looking at razor-thin margins between these for the most part. I think that really if you chose anything from the 224 Valkyrie, 22 arc, 6mm arc, or 6.5 Grendel, you're really going to be cooking. You're going to have a good amount of energy, you're going to have really good performance, it's going to be much easier to get on target than with 223, and it's just going to have more flexibility overall. However, I'm going to point everybody here toward 22 arc to take a very serious look at it for a couple of extra reasons. Now, I'm going to go ahead and knock 224 Valkyrie off of its pedestal for just a second, because yes, it is a very high-performing cartridge. It's very good, especially with those big bullets. And actually, it works really well with its own magazines too. But it does have one issue for hand loaders. So if you like to reload your brass afterward, get new loads through there, people are getting roughly 4 hand loads through 224 Valkyrie brass. It just doesn't last as long. 6.5 Grendel, 6mm arc, and 22 arc has much tougher brass. It doesn't seem to have any issues feeding in this rifle. It feeds, fires, ejects really, really well. And brass not only comes out undamaged, but it comes out typically very clean. I've been shocked at how clean it runs in here. It just seems to seal up the neck really well. And then, yeah, you can reload these, I don't even know how many times. But yeah, 224 Valkyrie, not so much. That one's a little bit rougher. It's still a high performer, so if you're the kind of person that just buys your ammo off the shelf and you want to shoot that, I think you'd have a good time. But I have 2 major reasons outside of just absolute performance why you really need to take a look at 22 arc, maybe versus the 6mm arc or the 6.5 Grendel, even though it pains me since I've got 6mm arc sitting right back here. 6.5 Grendel, it kind of has its own limitation built into it because its shoulder is so far forward, you can't get into the most efficient bullets that are available for the cartridge. You can see that they are efficient and they do go farther, but it's still holding the cartridge back just a little bit. 6mm ARC opened up that market, and you have all of the bullets that you would normally load for a 243 Winchester, or one of the big target cartridges like 6XC or whatever. You can load those up in here, and you're going to have a very flexible range of uses, but nothing compares to the 22 market. Maybe 308 or 9mm, just for a variety of bullets that you can get for this diameter. You have everything from super lightweight varmint bullets. You have up to extreme, very heavy target bullets. You have bonded bullets like this 75 that I just told you about right here. Talk about performance. This little guy is great. You have all of the military bullets that are out there, like tracers. You have all the military surplus stuff that tends to run really cheaply. And then one thing that I want somebody out here to try is M855A1, which is that new armor penetrator that's available for the latest military cartridges. It's kind of expensive to get your hands on those, but if you could pull those bullets, pop it into 22 ARC, I would love to see how much body armor that could shred. That would be a whole lot of fun. And I want to see a test out there. Somebody get on it. But the second big reason is compatibility with all your other 22 accessories, especially out on this end. So if you have some kind of muzzle brake that you really like, most probably it's going to be available in that 22 diameter. Suppressors are going to be cheaper and more available. If you want to get into 6.5 Grendel or 6mm ARC, you're either getting a very rare item that is specifically for that size diameter, like a 6 or 6.5, or you're stepping up to 308, where everything tends to get heavier, beefier. It's built to be able to handle even magnum recoil in a lot of cases, and so you're getting a bit too much and having to pay a bit too much for what you're getting. So the fact that 22 ARC opens you up to the mass market, I think is just wonderful, and that's why a lot of you folks should be looking at it. If you have kind of hit the limit of 223, then it's time to take a serious look at 22 ARC. Just build out an upper, get some magazines, and that's really all you have to do. Uh-oh, we have a new challenger. I may have misspoken. Actually, this is an old challenger. You guys ever hear of 223 WSSM? I'm going to compare the performance of all of these cartridges against this old one, just so you can see what is possible in a 223, a 224 diameter rifle, if you decide to go the insane route. So this is Winchester super short magnum, and this blows away everything, including the 6.5 Creedmoor as far as drop goes. Look at that line way up top. And this isn't even using the most efficient bullet that you could possibly get. If you put a 90 in there, that'd be nuts. This sucker is leaving the muzzle at 3,424 feet per second with a 75 grain bullet. And you can see as far as drop and windage goes, it just kind of thrashes everything. It has quite a bit of energy. It still doesn't get up toward that 6.5 Creedmoor. That's a much heavier bullet. But yeah, you want to talk about external ballistics? Yeah, this one is crazy. Now, I just kind of threw that one in for fun because it doesn't fit a standard AR-15. You have to get one of the weird ones like the UMAR from Olympic Arms, and it pretty much just melts your rifling. You might as well just strap a new barrel to the side of every magazine that you shoot. Okay, it's not quite that bad. But actually, that does bring up something. These cartridges are a little bit more mild than you might be thinking. 223 barrels tend to last a pretty good amount of time, and if you're packing more powder behind one of these, okay, first off, 22 ARC is going to last probably a bit less long than 223. It does have a little bit of a different shoulder and neck, but when you are building out your own upper, or if you're going to purchase a rifle, what I recommend with any of these is that you get something that's nitrided. Stainless is pretty good, but if you can get a nitrided barrel, especially in 22 ARC, that's going to help you preserve your rifling over a longer duration. You're just going to get more use out of the rifle. But still, it's not extremely bad. It's not quite as bad as 223 WSSM. One more thing to think about as you are picking how you're going to build out your upper or your rifle, just think about what your actual purpose is. If you want to go hunt deer out in the woods, go with something short. Do a little 16 or something. You're still going to get pretty high performance. These are cartridges that tend to burn their propellant very efficiently, very quickly, and so you get a pretty good muzzle velocity even with a shorty like these little 16 inchers. If you wanted to stretch out more, yeah, definitely get a longer barrel and check your twist rate. So you want a 1 in 7 on 22 ARC. If you want to get into the new stupid heavy bullets that came out, I think it's a 95 grain Sierra Match King, you have to have a 1 in 6.5. But that's just going to be for the long range freaks, for the competitors. If you just want to be able to, you know, shoot game, have fun at the range, and be able to stretch things out a little bit more, yeah, just go with the 1 in 7. That should do it. Now here's a little trick to keep in mind. All the cartridges that I've talked about for the AR-15 today, that's everything from 223 up through that 6.5 Grendel and now 22 ARC, all of those are actually built right now to run at 52,000 PSI, which is considerably less than what you can get if you're running a bolt action rifle. So if you are a hand loader and you get into 22 ARC, get yourself a bolt action rifle and you'll be able to crank up the performance even more. Yes, these are high performing, but they're limited by what the lugs can take in an AR-15. So you can get this up to 62,000 PSI up from the 52. That's going to mean more muzzle velocity for the same bullets, which means that you're going to hit targets harder and you'll be able to hit them again a little bit farther out. But I think that's really the only tips that I have for building out one of these rifles. I recommend that you do it. Definitely have a good 223 Remington. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but everybody should have one of these. Ammo's everywhere, it's cheap, it's interchangeable, you know, everything out there is for 223. But then if you want to build out that upper, I really think it's a great time to do it. Thanks a bunch, y'all. I'll see you around.